one person says, I think tonight's going to get really dark. And then there's a really long pause. And then the main character goes, I think that's what nights do. And I was just like, that's bad.
Hello and welcome to another Dead Pixel. We're a podcast about video games, anime, entertainment, life, a little bit of everything in between. I'm your host, as always, Joe, and with me, the person who has been quoted multiple times for saying they are guaranteed to buy themselves the PlayStation 5 Pro, Nick. How are you looking about that, Nick?
Yes, I am. I am guaranteed to buy it. Um, but it depends on when I will buy it. I may buy it
Pretty
in.
sure episode 90 was pre-order. I will be there to pre-order.
I
I'm
think
pretty sure.
I think I will.
If I can get it, I will pre-order.
I
Yeah.
think I will pre-order a copy of it from the pawn shop in the year 2045. Um, so, yes, that is the plan right now. And I'll let you know as we get closer to 2045. If I'll be able to do that. So that is my plan right now. How are you doing, Joe? Are you okay?
No. Well, I'm as okay as I can be for this week. I've been getting over a pretty crappy week of being sick. Uh, I don't think it was, the flu. It was just, I think it was just a really bad cold, or if it was the flu, it was like low key flu. Just, body aches and pains and just fatigue. And then my youngest has been sick for the last, I've been better for a last little bit, but then she decides to get sick, and I blame daycare on that one, as I always do.
Mm.
But yes, she's been not so great. So it's like it's been a tiring, day and a half. Just yeah. But I guess it could be worse. So there's always that, right?
Yeah, it can always be worse. Um, those are the words that I live by and wake up every morning thinking it could be worse, but I always struggle to
And then
see
you
how.
and then you put the revolver back in the drawer.
And then I
Um,
then I put the revolver, I pull the revolver out of my mouth and put it back in the drawer.
all right. On that great note, yeah. All right, what do you got
Speaking
for the
of,
news?
spe-
Obviously, the PlayStation 5 Pro was announced.
so yeah, thank you. So yeah, we'd be crazy not to talk about the PS5 Pro. Um, so a couple days ago, when was that? Tuesday? This
Yeah,
past week, something like that. Earlier this week, as we record late on 9/14. Um, Earlier this week, PS5 Pro was officially announced, and they had what 8 minute, less than 10 minute presentation video given by Mark Cerny, going over what it was going to be, and then at the very very end, they just flashed the prices up on, which is what everybody really cared about the most. And so it's going to be we're going to be talking in terms of the U.S. dollar for most of this. Um, so it's gonna be $6.99 for no disc in the U.S. Digital
no
edition.
disc.
Yeah.
What the hell?
So the no disc edition will be $6.99. With a disc, it'll be $80 more. So around $779. So basically 700 for no disc, 780 for the disc drive, and then the stand is going to be $30 thereabout. So total with the disk drive, I said originally 799, but really it's more like 810 probably. 810 dollars to get what you had with the PS5, um, essentially. Um, and so let's just stick with the pricing stuff right now. So basically all this is, um, is kind of me calculating like, am I getting ripped off here? And the price is, it's staggering. It is kind of staggering, when you compare it to the PS5. But when you think about the PS5 being released uh, in the middle of COVID, um, before inflation had really kicked off hard, um, and the fact that they pretty much always break even on consoles, if not take a loss. So Sony was probably taking a little bit of a loss or breaking even on or selling basically at cost the original PS5. When you kind of take all that into consideration and then you adjust for inflation, um, so basically a little reminder: November 12th, 2020 is when the PS5 was released. Base model, meaning with the disk drive, was right at 500. Digital was 400. Um, After adjusting for inflation, the base model would be 603. And then if you account for the PS5 Pro being 45% faster, so if you just tack on 1.45, if you just multiply that by 1.45, you come up with 875.26. So that's kind of my rough math. I'm sure there's plenty of things that I'm not really taking into consideration,
Yeah,
but
like common sense, man. Okay, so I get to play the
but
irate,
hang on a second, hang on a second.
customer
But
here.
so basically when you factor in all of the economic things, and you consider how much quote better that this is a PS 5.5 essentially, um, then 810 for the same thing but better that you got in 2020 is probably it seems weird, but it's actually cheap. It's actually cheap for what it probably should be when you straight up calculate for inflation. But it's such a weird thing to say because it doesn't feel that way. It just feels like, dang, this is so expensive.
Yes, but also at the same time, PS5 hasn't gone up with inflation in the same way, at least not in the US. Some places did get an increase and then it got decreased, and who knows what. But that's the thing is like that logic doesn't apply to the average person because no one cares about the inflation because guess what? My job didn't also increase with inflation. And we think about it as per console by console, basis. I mean, we're looking at if you look at the PS4 Pro when that came out at $400. I mean, we're talking about, like starting to get to Neo Geo prices. What it feels like is it feels like Nvidia when they went, oh yeah, we released the 3000 series cards and they all got scalped to hell. And so then towards the end of the 3000 series, when they started refreshing models and making them kind of worse in some ways or tweaking certain things, and they're like, and now that we tweaked it, we have a new SKU. We're going to jack up the price just to screw over everyone because why should the scalpers make all the money when we can get the money? And then what happens? They raise that also set the precedent of raising people's expectations. Be like, oh, it's already at this price because now that they have it at 700 or this $700 price point, they're going to be like, guess what? The PlayStation 6 when that comes out, hey, it's going to be equal to or if not more, and we've already been accustomed to that because we've been seeing that the sticker shock isn't as bad because they're kind of screwing us over with this little mid fresh bump. The stuff you're getting for it is the amount of cost doesn't necessarily equate because if you don't say just the $700 by itself for no hard drive, you're getting the
No
pro
disk drive.
model, the disk drive. I'm sorry, I said hard drive. I'm sorry. You are getting a 1 terabyte bump. So you're going from 1 terabyte to 2 terabyte.
Oh, I didn't realize
So
that. Okay.
yes, I believe that's the case. So you are getting more space, but you're getting rid of the optical drive. I mean, you got to think no one's gonna like these are for the hardcore fanboys for the most part who are gonna jump in on this right away. Uh, and so they most people are gonna have physical media. You're gonna want to be able to play your stuff, and they're like, "No, you can. You know what? All that stuff you have, you just might as well just throw it in the trash." Because there's no way you can play it unless if you upgrade. And that's so. Therefore, yeah, you're paying that 800, total price. Or 810 after if you want the stand pre-tax. That's ridiculous. I think it's a bad move, but what it does do is they release it in limited quantities. The fans and the people who want like the top end stuff who have the money, they will buy it. They will sell out because they'll release it in limited quantity, making it a hot button item for a little bit. And then when they do release PlayStation 6 down the road, they already have softened us up, and we're like, okay, it's like the PS5 Pro.
It'll
They did the
be
price in
it'll be $7.99. The PS6 will be $7.99. I don't think they'll go for a 50, but the PS6 will probably come out sooner rather than later. And it'll be $7.99. It'll be almost $800. It depends. We're probably it won't be long before we're at 1,000. I mean, I think that's what happened with phones,
and
because they were at
and
seven
this is
hundred
Neo
bucks, and
Geo
then they were
global pricing here.
suddenly they were at $1,000. I mean, maybe it happened slower than I remember, but I feel like it was overnight, just about.
Yeah, I mean, within a couple generations, a couple years, I would say
So,
you're probably right. Within probably 3 or 4 years, phones jumped up. But like I said, like nothing has gone up this high with consoles since like
well,
my memory, it was the Neo Geo at 650. So like we were talking about inflation. If you want to do the
dude,
inflation
the
math, then
Neo
yeah,
Geo at
you're looking at like
650.
1200 or something.
What was what year did the Neo Geo come out? Not 90,
Neo Geo, shoot,
like
that was
late 80s,
uh yeah, that was no, that was 90s. And so I don't actually remember when the Neo Geo actually came out anymore, but that like you're talking about like
but
something like a
650 in the
13.
90s is like $1,500 to. But I don't even
Yeah,
know what that would be. It's insane. That's like that was. I mean, and it had some interesting stuff on it, and it's an interesting artifact now, but that is like insane in terms of like
well,
2024
you're talking
dollars.
about a cabinet. Well, the only thing that made that one unique, it was cabinet quality material, like
Yeah,
gaming. Uh, so arcade cabinet quality at your home. So that was the only
which is
justification. But other
cool.
than that, no console has ever dared to go up as high as
So
this.
I did,
Uh,
what kind of set me off on all this, inflation stuff was right after I watched this Mark Cerny presentation. I did click on Linus Tech Tips in spite of myself, and
shame on
I
you.
know, I know, um,
Digital
but
Foundry all the way.
but he did give me value straight away, because he was basically like, because his first thing was comparing it, across the board, and he had it. I don't really. His numbers were not really the same numbers that I found, if I remember correctly. But basically the PS3 initial release was wildly more expensive even than this, and I mean everybody knew that at the time. And it
Well,
adjusted for.
the quote was they would get a second job.
Yeah, that's famously the quote, and I don't think that we're there. We're not there with PS or with Sony right now, but because it happened before, and they remember, I think they Sony has been like, okay, we can only push these people so far. So there's a couple of things I want to say about the price point too. That with the PS4, what I remember from everybody talking about it, like on Giant Bomb and stuff, you really needed a PS4 Pro. There was a need for it whenever it came out. It was like, yeah, this is going to cut down on the egregiously long load times. This is going to help it not sound like a jet engine taking off. There was a lot of stuff that seemed to be useful.
I think the biggest argument for the PS4 Pro was actually like, yeah, it was what you just mentioned, but it was actually the big thing is it was able to do 4K proper, because the PS4 was not really meant for 4K. It couldn't really do all the things, and so when you're doing a side by side comparison, like you have a problem with this the way they sold this because they're like you can't you can't talk ill of the core model. You can't say it's not doing anything right. And because you're like it does things well, but this is going to but here's what it does better. Like now it was a clear cut comparison where you're like, hey, this is really the 4K. PS4 Pro is doing 4K the correct way, and this is a significant bump. Now Mark Cerny, you were telling me beforehand that you liked how this is more of a
Hang on a
concise
second.
like.
Hang on a second. We'll get to that in just a
Okay.
second. So the point I was trying to make was the PS4. Um, that there was a lot of talk in the community that there needed to be an upgrade. That it was a useful upgrade. So with the PS5, well, I don't want to say you, but I know I don't really feel like I need a PS5 Pro. I don't feel like I need it to be upgraded. I don't feel like my games are chugging. I think that you have said something similar. I know I've heard other people say that they're like, well, my PS5 actually runs fine. So I think that's the general feeling of the community. And I think that what they're doing is actually pretty smart, that they are releasing this before it's really necessary. I think they probably would be better off releasing it next year, and people would be a little bit more hungry for it. But they can release it now. They can get it in the hands of the fanboys. They can give us the sticker shock with everybody being like, I don't need that. I don't need that. And so they're not gonna worry about buying it until next year when they go, okay, I've had a year to think about it. I've had a year to plan, and the games are starting to chug. They are starting to get that way, and I can go ahead and plan to get it. And then also with the price being what it is, they don't have to raise it, which everybody hates. If they have to raise it again in Europe, which they might, then it's just a bad look. It's just terrible. It puts a bad taste in everybody's mouth. It's bad publicity. It just looks terrible. So I think that that's kind of where they're at. They're like, we're gonna release this early and let people not have to buy it. We're still gonna make money off of it, and we're not gonna have to raise the price later, and we won't have to deal with scalping and that kind of stuff at least as much, because it will have a smoother transition into this one. So I think that those are probably the things that they're going for, and if it does work out that way, then and we'll see in hindsight. Then I think that it was pretty smart, but all that remains to be seen. Now, you were going to say something about Mark Cerny and the way this presentation went.
I'll answer your thing before. Yes, I agree with you. I don't think it's necessary to upgrade at this moment for most people. I believe that most of the games, run well enough, and granted, this is kind of where the technical details come in because I feel like uh, the whole PS5 Pro doesn't provide the upgrade you should have had compared to the PS4 Pro. I mean, uh, I figured you'll talk more about the specs later, so we can dive into it at that point. But yes, so Mark Cerny, uh, he does really good technical deep dives. He explains to you all that's why it's needed, what's great about it, and he's one of those voices that you can tell he is genuinely like interested, and he's not giving you a sales pitch. Um, he's all about the tech and his purpose for it. So the PS4, I'm sorry, the PS4 Pro, when he talked about that, and when he talked about the PS5, those were like 50-minute to an hour long presentations,
Mm,
and here you got it whittled down to like you know uh yeah, it was like 9 minutes, but it was also you had the fluff in the beginning,
Hmm.
just them talking about the current gen and
Probably
how
about
it's how
6.5 minutes of real tech talk. Yeah.
yeah, something along those lines. And then we had, it's one of and it's like, and him also saying the fact that like 30 frames is like chugging or something along those lines. I might be paraphrasing, so I probably misquoting, but he actually said 30 frames. Like some fans or people are like saying 30 frames is chugging, or like he spoke a negative, which was really weird because then later on they're showing video footage of their new like of the new system and talking and showing it running at 30 frames for some of the games. And it's just like, yeah, it looks better because of the fidelity and everything like that, but it's still running at 30, which is a mixed messaging. What you need to do is you should have had him speak for like half an hour plus, going deep into why this thing is great, why you want it, and to really upsell people on it. Because you give them that much more information, and that way you're like, oh, here's the sticker shock. Here's the okay, this makes more sense opposed to just a quick bullet point of here's what makes it here's the new upgrades and this is why, and then just saying that now here's the price.
Yeah.
But if you give them a deep dive, let them really go into it, and that's the other problem is, you know, it's the constant argument of, hey, you can't show a lot of stuff on a YouTube stream because of compression. That sucks. You should
Oh.
have you should have a lot more still images like JPEG, something like that, so you can look in side by side comparison photos.
Well, the
Uh,
Ratchet and
you
Clank
know,
picture they showed was pretty interesting, where they were like the AI upscaling and stuff like that. I was like, okay, that's a good way to show that. They like zoomed in until it was pixelated, and then zoomed out, and it was like, oh yeah, this is a freaking huge image here.
Yeah, and the other thing is they're showing a lot of first party or, like, mainstream games that already looked good, so it was like there wasn't a once again, you don't wanna sell you're trying not to shame your first the PS5, unlike the PS4 where you're like, clearly not meant for 4K. PS5 Pro or PS4 Pro meant for 4K, so you can see the clear differences, but this one you're like, "Yeah, here's" you so they were in a tough spot. That's why they really should have given him uh some breathing room to actually just to wax poetic as it were, just to let him go off and talk about how great these new features are. And instead they didn't really get to do anything with the biggest feature of PSSR. You know, that is probably one of the most interesting points of this whole thing. The PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, and like that's the FSR. Like it's better. It's gonna. The hope is it's better than FSR 2, which is currently what you have. Um, and the hope is that it's going to be uh like X was it the Intel XCSS or the DLSS.
Mm.
So because
Is that
DLSS is
just
like
like, is that just to remove pixelation? Is that what that is?
it's the so they have so the big thing in this is they have the hardware, um, the AI, the AI tech to upgrade, so you can go from the hope is to go from a 1080p image to make it a 4K, like a nice, more crisp, better looking 4K image.
So it's
So
generating, it's taking a smaller image that's being generated by the actual like GPU or whatever CPU, and then it's upscaling it in real time to, so that it can do more with less, kind of.
yeah, because
Okay.
so DLSS has been doing this. NVIDIA's been the forerunners um, in this market, and that's why it's been going so well because you can take the output you're processing a lower lower grade image, 720p, 1080p, but then you can make it look a lot more crisp. 1440,
Hmm.
4K, and that really helps the overall toll on the GPU. But that's the thing is this is the PS5 Pro is GPU centric. That's all the upgrades. You opposed to the CPU, which they in the CNET article they talk about a little bit, but there's a 10% uh,
Boost mode.
optional upgrade,
Hmm.
boost mode, but it's for well, not it's but that's for the developers. It's not just something that you're going to get automatically. Like opposed to PS4 to PS4 Pro, the CPU was upgraded and you got a 30% boost. So the CPU was automatically 30% better. So the argument is a lot of games, if you're going to want it to go, the image is going to be looking better. You're going to get better ray tracing, better fidelity. The the big thing though is you're not going to go from like 30 frames magically to 60 frames. Because that's a lot of that depending on the type of game. But if you're doing an open world game or something like that, you're not going to be able to get those extra. It's just that's CPU processing. If it's CPU bound, you're not gonna. There's no extra CPU, so you're just not going to magically get that boost. Um, so kind of what he mentioned in the beginning, Mark Cerny saying that through their analytics, a lot of people are doing performance mode opposed to the fidelity settings
Right.
on the PlayStation 5. So now essentially the to boil this down, to the bare minimum, you are getting the performance frame rate currently, like the current PS5 frame rate with the quality of, the fidelity. So that's all it is you're making it, you're kind of smushing them together. You're not gonna, but it's not gonna magically give you
So,
um
so
your 40 frames isn't magically probably going to be like 60 frames. That's probably not going to happen.
so basically, I mean, what I heard, I only watched it once, but what I came away from it with was like that in the past it was more or less 4K 30, or maybe or if you wanted 60, then you might have 4K, but you're sacrificing a bunch of other stuff like shadows and just overall other fidelity. But it's still basically like 4K, but also maybe not sometimes. And now with the PS5 Pro, you're gonna get 4K 60 more or less with the performance mode, or with the fidelity mode, and then you're gonna get like 4K 30 with better, or like with performance mode you're gonna get up to like 120, or I'm sure that's probably like too much, but you're gonna get more than 60. But
I'm saying if a game, so
I don't know. That's
from
kind of what I
the
remembered.
information I've been gleaming, it seems you're more than likely, if a game is already doing 60, then it's just going to still run. It's like you're still running at a stable 60, but now you're getting better. The
Okay.
majority of it is you're getting a better quality picture. You're
Right.
able to, so things are going to be more stable, but so you're not going to get the fluctuations. So unfortunately, if a game's running uneven, like fluctuating between, let's say, 40 and 50,
Yeah.
you'd probably get a better stable 50,
Yeah.
but you're not, and you might be able to eke out a little bit more, and maybe get up to 60, but you're not going to magically go from 30 to 60. If a game is currently struggling, because that's the problem is, fidelity mode games, a game that can run roughly around 60 now, but with less visual quality on the performance mode. I mean, that's the sacrifice you make. You're like, well, I want 60. Well, if you want 4K, or you're gonna have to get like 30, and some games run 30 unstable. So that's, like I say, if the performance mode is already targeting 60, great. You'll able to upgrade it. But certain games that struggle, it's not gonna magically just give it a huge boost to frame rates. I mean, but the goal is, if your performance is already doing 60, you're now going to get a nice coat of paint to make it look better, because that's the thing is, you're not getting 4K native. There's no reason to do 4K native. It's just too taxing. And that's why with they didn't show, there's very little, like there's no really information about the PSSR. Like, we're all speculating. Um, but if it
Mm-hmm.
runs like DLSS, because unfortunately, um, the current implementation for the AMD FSR 2, it doesn't run great. I mean,
Yeah.
it kind of does the job, but not really. So it's kind of a sad imitation. So that's why you're hoping. That's why it's like, hey, if they've made this new technology, this is kind of the what'll be clutch, because they only have to output native at 1080, and the the AI generation is going to, PSSR is going to boost it up to 4K, and you won't really tell the difference. Um, so that makes it easier on the system overall. So that's the hope. But once again, they didn't go into it. They didn't get to talk about it. Mark Cerny didn't get a chance to really mention
Well,
any of it.
like everything you're saying with
So
that, just backs up to me my theory, my conspiracy theory that they don't really want you to buy this um, right now. That it's too early for most people, um, and they're if we all needed this, quote needed, because because the PS5 was chugging or it didn't look good or whatever, then people would probably be more angry, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not really sure how angry people are. I don't think they really have a. At first I was like, dang, this is crazy, but the more that I dig into it and the more that I look at all this stuff, I'm like, yeah, if I was them, I would do the same thing. If not, maybe more. I might make it. I might have done like a 750, but um, so I can see why they're doing the things that they're doing. I mean, the bottom line, there's a lot of stuff to it. The bottom line is that it's the biggest number is this can be 45% faster, thereabout. Um, and there's a lot of other little things like we've been talking about. I don't know all of them before I buy. I probably will look into exactly what I'm getting and how. Um, but it's just it's it's a weird spot. And I just don't think that they want us to buy it yet. I think they're I think they're doing what they can to get it out and let it be a slower rollout than before.
yeah, I think it hurts their overall image to do this personally because it's almost you know, yeah, and I agree with you the fact that yes, if they pull out a higher price now, it'll be less sticker shock later when they do almost the same price for the next console.
I mean,
Um,
I guess what would you do if you were Sony at this point with inflation the way that it is and all this stuff, these numbers that we're seeing? Like, what would your price point be if you were Sony and you stood to make, you know, make or lose money off of it?
well, traditionally, you would generally lose money on the console, and if you want to, the idea is you want to try to have the hearts and minds of your fan base and not spur them. Uh, so you would go, like you're better off going 600, uh, and then dropping the price of the current unit, current PS5 model. Instead, they're like, we're going to keep the model. Their current outlook is we're just going to gouge our fan base, those who are most interested in it. We're going to just bleed those people dry, and anyone else who is moderately like, we're just going to make them go for the cheaper model or the current one. And it's it doesn't make sense as a for the fans kind of thing. You can't. There's they do a lot of things. Sony is still very much uh, because they are ahead. They have that arrogance of, well, people are going to bend to our will, uh, and that's a dangerous motto to have. When you start getting into these prices, especially when you're looking at like overseas prices and stuff like that too. But when you're looking at, well, to get everything, I need $800. Okay, if I if I get a moderate, uh, you know, GPU, and then get myself like a decent setup, you're looking at what, 1,000 to 1,200, probably $1,200. Uh, so
For a your
for
own built
PC, so like
PC.
a 47, like say a 4070,
Yeah,
is a
probably
it's
12,
it's like
1500 for a pretty decent setup. It's gonna last
yeah,
you a long
so
time.
but yeah, it's gonna last you. It's upgradable, so
Hmm.
it'll last you. So when it starts to chug, you just have to get do a small bump, sell your old one, or and
And
also
Steam games are by and large $60 still. They're not 70 a lot of the time.
and you can get a lot of free games from you can still get Epic free games. You can get Amazon if you have that subscribed.
If you already
You
had
have
Steam,
other
then
options.
all your old games still
Um,
play. Yeah.
you're going to get the entire Microsoft board, and then Sony's already starting to flip their games over, so you can you're going to get into the Sony ecosystem one way or the other. So the point of a console is to be easily accessible for the everyday person. and that someone who doesn't want to deal with firmware updates, doesn't want to, if something goes wrong, like they want just a closed ecosystem, a closed box they don't have to touch. They don't have to worry about firmware or anything that, like, just hey, you tell me what to update, I'll do it the one time, and then I'm good to go. Uh, but also, it's supposed to be accessible, like price point wise.
Yeah.
But by making it more and more expensive, you're kind of pricing the average person out.
But
And
I mean, like
you know,
we are talking about a $1,200 PC, which is $400 more than this with the disk drive, plus the hassle of doing all that stuff. So
well,
I see
see,
what I
you're also talking, but if wait, but then you're talking about, well, I don't have to pay for online gaming, so I'm going to save $100+ a year on that. So in 4 years, you break even, at least. So I mean, there's not really
but I
in the
think
longevity of a console.
but
You know,
I think that I think these consoles for most people that don't have a podcast about video games and anime is, dude, I just want to play my Madden, or like, dude, I just want to play my Final Fantasy. They're for people that only play, 1 to 5 games a year, and buy their game and then just like kind of live off of that. And I think that you can say, well, dude, you have all these all these access to more games, and you have all this stuff, and it's like, okay, that sounds good, and you get like free online. It's like, okay, that sounds good, and it's like, and you're like, okay, how do I do it? And then you're like, and then you have to put up this giant blueprint list of all this stuff that they have to do, and the upfront cost and stuff like that, and it's like, yeah, I mean, you're right that over time I'll save money, but I'll save headache now, and I'll pay for all that stuff like over time. Like I don't have $1,200 now. I have $800 now. I have like whatever $100 now. So, or
see,
if you're on the no
I
disc,
Y
$700.
the thing is, you're looking at it for someone who's gonna build it themselves, but, I mean, the pre-built market, those at the big box stores, Walmart or whatever, they like I said, that ain't much more expensive than $1,200 for the
But it's
PS5 Pro
still
equivalent.
$400 more than even with a disk drive. And if you're only a couple
Yeah.
game person, then you're only at seven. You're talking about $500
I
more.
I don't then if
It's
that's the case, if you're only a couple game person, you're gonna go to the Xbox Series S and save a big chunk of change, and then if you're only a Madden person, but I think that type of person doesn't exist like it used to. I still think a lot of people still have that mindset or that remembrance of it, but I think because gaming is so much more widely accepted,
ubiquitous, yeah.
uh, that more and more people, I mean, yes, you get the person who will always get the Call of Duties every year, but they're not just going to play Call of Duty. They're going to play a lot. They're going to play other games as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I really, even like I said, even the stereotypical college kid, right, who only wants it for one or two things. Well, then if you're going to go stereotypical college kid, you're not going to bring in an $800 unit. You're going to go with whatever is cheaper, and that's where Xbox comes in for the
Yeah.
mainstream games.
And I
Like,
mean, you'd have a point there as far as Xbox goes. Xbox problem there is that they are confusing the market and coming out later with stuff. Um, but yeah, they are probably grabbing a little bit more of that ultra casual, you know, whatever, 2 or 3 games a year person. Um, like I'll just say that that I think that most people are very the most people are just a lot simpler than like we realize. Most people that they really aren't into games. They're like, yeah, I play video games and stuff like that. And because I talk to people, like whenever I find out that they like games or whatever, I'm like, oh, okay. And I start talking to them, and I can tell very, very, very quickly who is a basically like a PC master race type gamer, or what I would kind of more call like a true gamer, and who's just like a filthy casual. And at work, a lot of people play games, and I think and like there was only like two guys that I would consider like true dyed in the wool, like capital G gamers, and one of those guys left. And everybody else, they like they play games. They have a Switch, they have a PS5 or an Xbox or whatever, and you start talking to them, and it's like, oh, okay, you just play sometimes. You're not really in this world. You're not keeping up with the news. You're not doing all this stuff. And so I think those kind of people are the majority. And I think that those kind of people are not really looking into it all that hard. They're being advertised to, and they're like, oh, okay, and I've got some money, and they're just not gonna think about it all that much. They're they're just kind of like they're just kind of gonna get eaten up by the marketing machine, and that's
Well, I will agree with you. I also talk to people, and so therefore, I also think that the average person who's not like really into gaming is just going to go with the bare bones, and therefore they're going to completely omit. There's no reason for them to get a PS5 Pro if they only want the Sony exclusives and they don't have a PC that can do gaming. They're going to go with the baseline PS5. They
yeah.
want to play the God of War, their Helldiver, something like that, and they don't have a PC, for gaming, then yes.
I do agree with
But at
you
the same
though that like the smart thing to do. I think that they probably have the price point future proofed a little bit, and and if that remain and if they don't raise it, then I think that I'll be proven right on that. But I think that the one thing that they should have done at this point is they should have dropped the price of the original PS5. I think they should. I think that would even by $50, even by $25, something. 25 would be a little bit silly, but by $50 would have really gone a long way to getting back hearts and minds and saying, we know not everyone can afford the new one, but we're gonna give a cut on the old one, you know. But yeah,
Yeah, it's and like I said, it's unfortunate that this is kind of the way they reveal it. Uh, and it's not until later on we see the new games coming out, then we'll actually see the good points. But at the same time, uh, the question is, who is this for in the end? And it's only for those who have to have the new shiny thing, who have to have the best of the best.
yeah,
I do not believe it's meant for, it's not meant for those who want to upgrade, like the casual, like just a normal person. Like there's no reason to upgrade at this point. And if you're coming in fresh, like, hey, I want to get into this gaming thing, I don't believe it's for them either. Because
yeah.
for that extra month cost, you can get a set of controllers, you can get this, that, the other thing. I joked with you beforehand. I'm saying you can get the base model, and you can take a huge chunk off the PS VR2. I mean, get it on Black Friday sale, and I bet you can probably make come at a cost. I mean, that's a really, like, or you can get just the entire, like most of the entire library of really solid games. Like, Ghost of Tsushima, Ratchet and Clank, it's like The Last of Us, stuff like that. You can get those games, the big Hallmark ones, and still come out, cheaper than the PS5 Pro. So it's one of those, by the time, I think for me personally, unless things really start screaming at it, or like I originally got the PS4 Pro because I wanted the VR,
Mm,
and I didn't have a PS4 at the time, so I'm like, I knew the
you
PS
may as
with
well then,
all the
yeah.
upgrades, like yeah, that is the one you're going to go for because the PS4 base model was not capable of doing PSVR one well enough, and so like unless if for some reason there's a huge switch like that makes PSVR two like amazing, like that much more, like then I might think about it. But realistically, by the time this comes out, you're looking at what 2026, 2027 at latest, probably for the new consoles to come out. So it's only a
For
couple of
like the
years for the
PS6,
PS6. Um,
what is
so
it?
I mean, why I only have to wait like 2, maybe 3 years at most? I mean,
I think 27 would probably be. I think Christmas 27 would probably be the earliest, so you'd see a PS6 if since this is coming out now. I think.
I
Yeah,
was like, I'm pretty sure like the rumor mill was starting a while back saying like 2026 was Xbox's like started, like estimated target. But like realistically, I think things with the how due to COVID and how things stretched this generation, I'm like, all right, we'll make that 2027, and yeah. So I mean, 3 years isn't that much, and all the games already currently under development are targeting this generation. Anything else that comes towards the end of the life cycle,
Mm-hmm.
chances are somehow going to be backwards compatible. Uh, Now, this could be Sony's grand scheme of also being like, guess what, guys? We're gonna PS6 is not gonna have a disk drive. Screw you guys. We're going completely diskless. Eat it, and
Yeah.
like
If they give me
that
three
that way.
terabytes, if they give me 3 terabytes, or 5 terabytes, um, that would help. At least an option. But I
It's
don't see.
for
We'll
me.
see if
For me,
they
it's a
actually do
matter
that.
of being able to play. Like the back catalog. I still like to be able to have access to that. Uh, that's what makes the Xbox Series such a decent thing.
Well,
But you also run into a problem with the fact that, for example, the PS5 Pro having the slim hard drive, or not hard drive. I'm sorry, I said it again. The disk drive setup. So the slim and the PS5 Pro, uh, that hard drive needs to be you need to connect it to the internet in order for it to work. Uh, so for any
mm,
reason, if you had to reformat the thing, uh, you can't. And like, if servers are down, you're gonna have to find a backwater way to get your disk drive to work. Unlike the base model, disk version of the PS5, it's like that one automatically works. Xbox Series X, I believe, it has the same issue where it has to connect to activate the disk drive, which is not a for preservation and for longevity of your system. That's not what you want.
mhm.
So it's one of those. Y- you think it should the pro model should come with the disk drive, and it, it's Sony. They make them. I mean, it's not like Xbox who has to, Microsoft who has to outsource,
Oh
the
yeah. Sorry.
so I don't know. It's just I
I
think
mean,
Sony's just making a lot of poor choices. Yes, they're looking in further down the road, but they're also kind of souring because now Xbox has a chance to. I mean, they're going in more and more into software, but they're also allegedly going to make the greatest generational leap ever in this next one, as they're quoted as.
oh, that's
But they're
a
also looking at.
it's a dumb thing to say. I'm tell you that much. That
Oh
is
yeah,
really
hands down.
dumb.
It's that's why everyone's quoting it because they're gonna hold them to that. So when it comes out, be like, really, but it's they're also been targeting something a little more handheld, hybrid esque or something like that, um, because the Steam Deck is kind of where it's at, and if you're doing
Man.
you know
Okay.
it's one of those hey, the sales and the feature set is something else. I'm not going to get one, and but I don't do handhelds anymore. So that's kind of
Too much arthritis.
Sony. Sony needs to like they're now starting to bring stuff to more and more to PC. They're just giving me an excuse to hold off on committing to them.
Well,
That's
the more stuff that these guys bring to PC, the less of a reason there is to get the console. Because if you are a PC master race kind of thing, if you do have a really kick-ass monitor and you've already taken and you built up, you've pre-built, or you built your own PCs, for years now. I have, the ropes, where to go to get the newest deals, you can upgrade. It's like, wait, I can wait 6 months or maybe a year and get the same game at running at a way higher frame rate if I just wait for it to come to PC, even like legally, yeah, it does give you less and less of a reason to
Well,
go this
Xbox
way.
almost does it. It still does day and day for a lot of their stuff through Game
Yeah.
Pass. I mean,
Well,
so
I
there's not
yeah,
waiting in that. And
I know, and
Sony's the one you have to wait.
I've been saying for years, there's no reason to buy an Xbox for me, because of that. It's just been like Switch, PS5, and PC, and that pretty much covers everything that I need. I can get everything from Xbox. But anyway, the only other thing that I wanted to say, which was the first thing that made me mad, and I forgot about it talking about all this other stuff. But selling the stand separately for $30 is fucking bullshit. Fuck you, Sony, for doing that. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The stand for $30? Are you kidding me? That's insane. No, no, no. The stand is not worth $30. You designed the thing to have a stand to stand upright, which is clearly the way it's designed to be, is to be stood upright because it's basically rounded on the sides. That was the thing that I saw and I was like, what? And then I got on all this other stuff. I really, really, really hate that move. So I will say that that is just, I mean, I guess I'll just buy, I think I'm just going to buy some bookends and just hold up my PS5 Pro whenever I do get it, because getting the stand, paying $30 for the stand. If I get a stand, it'll probably be a third party one because I don't know if I can pay Sony that. I don't know. By then I'll probably forget I'll buy it or something like that. I don't know, but it's that's irritating to me. That was one of the things I was like, okay, that's really really irritating.
They've been selling the upright stand separate for so long that it's kind of
I
like
got
old
one in
news
the
to me
box
at
on my
this.
one PS5. I mean, if you want to buy a better one, if you want to be like, oh, you want to buy this really cool weird one, it's like, okay, that's fine. But like if it doesn't come in the box, are you kidding me? I mean, I guess the PS2 didn't have a stand, but it stood up on its
You can still
own.
balance it. Yeah, that's I mean, PS, it's like that's the thing though. It's the I actually the other thing is I kind of wish they redesigned it differently. I'm not actually a fan of the current design. I mean,
Yeah.
it's cool in a like avant-garde kind of way, but not in a practical sense. It doesn't have to be the
Yeah.
utilitarian like Xbox,
Fridge, basically.
VCR Series S, or the rectangle cube as the Series S is, but at the same time, I wish it would just lie flat without a need for a stand. I
Yeah.
mean, I use mine lying flat, but I have, it's one of those things that I think that uh, I'm just not a fan of the two tone like the fact that the Slim has a two tone coloring on the side. One's a glossy, one's a matte. It's not a I don't know. It's just I think they did a lot wrong with it.
The design's too
Personally,
cute. It's you can tell you're spending probably an extra $15 to $20 on whatever mold they have for the plastic of the outside shell, and it's you can't put anything on it. You can't really put it on anything that's not large and flat. That is one thing I will say about the Xbox Series X is it's made to fit into whatever you have. It's very sturdy and it's made to not stand out. And that is really good option to have, something that you don't have to that doesn't literally reflect light off of it.
I also kind of wish the disk drive on the PlayStation was on top or dead center, because
Yeah, it sticks out like a
it
yeah.
like I said, it should just be flat, and if you have a curve, it should just be the top that curves, slopes. But
Yeah.
anyways, the PS5 Pro, I mean, it'll be neat to see. It's more interesting to see what they'll do with it, but they can't really divert too much because everything's going to have to play on the base games, and
Yeah.
anything that starts to stress the base system too much, well, you just have to wait a little bit, and you'll be able to play. Theoretically, if it's digital, you'll be able to hopefully backwards play it on the PS6.
It wasn't like
Just until you
isn't
have the
like God of War
system.
2 playable on the PS4 one? There was one of the God of Wars where it was like, hey, I went and tried and played this God of War on the PS4 base model, and it was like horrible. They were just like it just was killing the machine. It was chugging. It was barely playable at all. So I'm kind of with you, but I'm also kind of like there by the time I mean, by the time that starts to happen, I don't think people are going to care as much. But yeah, so
Yeah, I'm
anyway,
not sure if Ragnarok came out on the PS4. I don't think it did.
I
So
remember hearing something about some craziness, but you know,
I played the base, the remake, the God of War on PS4. and we have a PS4 or the Slim and the Pro. Uh, and most games still ran pretty fine on the Slim.
Okay.
Now the original base models, who knows? I mean, but still, it's one of those things that for me, 30 frames is still okay for most things for me. So I'm not really.
As long as it's
Uh,
stable, it's better. It's like if you can give me a solid 30, that's better than a 30 to 40 or a 30 to 50 or whatever. Or you don't want it to fluctuate because you want your timing to be right. But yeah, yeah, man, it's a weird one. Sony
yeah,
is doing some weird stuff.
yeah, they're there to make money. They're not your friend. Just remember that. But
That
that's
is
all
true.
companies in general.
Yeah.
So, all right, what else we got on the news?
So this one's one that you notified me about. I started to dig into it. That was kind of interesting. Annapurna Interactive, which is a branch of, which is the video game branch of the Annapurna Films kind of company. Annapurna Interactive, the basically the entire staff left at the same time. The managers left, and then about 2 dozen of the employees or whatever left. I think it's about 20. I think it's at 25 was the total. So the whole studio left. There's still Annapurna Films, which is different, but the interactive side completely left. This seems to be due to a failed deal. Annapurna Interactive wanted to spin off into its own studio, basically, I guess, independent. And the owner of Annapurna Films, sorry, founder and owner of Annapurna Films, and also Annapurna Interactive, Megan Ellison, walked away from deal talks, and that is when the entire staff decided to leave. So I have some theories on this, but what did you have anything you wanted to say before I go into that?
Uh, yeah, it's essentially just Annapurna Pictures. It's like they most recently we talked about them because of Alan Wake. So Alan, it's like Remedy signed a
Oh, right.
deal with them to help with external things. And so my first thought was like, okay, how does this affect them? But because their stuff should mostly be with the Annapurna Pictures opposed to the interactive, being the visual media side. So in theory, not too much will hopefully change, but obviously this impact is going to hit hard on a lot of things. I'm like, Remedy just can't seem to catch a break. Um,
Yeah,
so
you texted me that, and I mean, hopefully that is kind of the extent of it. They'll just kind of deal with Annapurna Films for the film aspects that they want to add to that the Remedy wants to add to their games, because they do kind of have the video game side probably on lock, but it doesn't bode well in some ways. As long as Remedy stays its own entity, then probably gonna be more or less okay. But at the very least, it's a bad look, and it doesn't help the situation.
yes, and I mean it's a weird situation all in all. I mean, obviously there's a lot behind the scenes that we don't know, but for them to all decide to leave, meaning like they must have had some the higher ups must have given them like here this is the future plan or this is how your profits are going to go or something like that, and it must have been something that everyone disagreed with, to the point where they're like we're willing to uproot our lives in this endeavor. It's hard to get 25 people. It's hard to get like four people to agree on something, let alone 25. And so for them to be willing to all leave their jobs, uh, that's a huge thing. They all they have families and you know everything
Yeah,
else. So
someone's always trying to buy a house or get married or have a kid or something. So yeah, that's really hard.
even if their plan is to go independent like themselves and be like, we'll form our own studio, like we're all going to band together. That takes a lot, or even if they're just going to scatter to the winds, but they're like, yeah, anything's better than this. That's a gutsy stance, and I mean, good
So
on them for having that solidarity. I mean, there's obviously, usually someone would be like, "No, no, dude, I'm staying. I can't afford to leave." And guess what? If you guys are gone, I get to go up probably.
Yeah, I get to be
Um,
manager. I get to be, that that is probably that might be a factor. The reason I mentioned Megan Ellison earlier is because she is the daughter of Larry Ellison, and I think I have this first name right. And he is the founder and owner of Oracle, which is a software company that you probably have in the past, do now, and almost certainly will use some of their products in the future. Um, and they're a massive company. They have a big suite of software products, mostly for like industry. Um, and so so basically the scuttlebutt, the rumors around the internet that I did a little bit of digging on is that he is a curmudgeon and a really big to put it the way people put it on the online. He's an asshole, and I imagine that the apple does not fall far from the tree. And the main reason I think that is because um, first of all, these people wanted to spin off. They wanted to go their own way. You don't do that if you like the owner. I've had a couple bosses that I really like, and I wouldn't have wanted to spin off. I wouldn't have wanted to try to take everything away from them if I because I like them. So they probably did not really like her in the first place, which is why they wanted to do that. This is where I'm getting kind of into my conspiracy theory. Um, and for all of them to walk out at the same time, that to me tells me that they are talking prior to this, and I imagine that the managers were like, okay, if we do this, if we try to go our own way, then when everybody needs to be on board, and so they got everybody to be on board. And whenever she walked away from the deal, which I imagine that part of their leverage was, hey, either you do what we say, or we're all going to leave, and you're going to have to just basically restart this whole studio. Um, and I imagine that's why she was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to walk away then because I don't agree with this deal." And they were like, "Okay." And so they left. That's what I pictured in my head as having happened. And I was telling you before the cast that in 1 year, maybe 2 years, we are probably going to see a new studio rise from the ashes, and it will probably be advertised as. Remember everybody that used to work for Annapurna Interactive that made Stray and Outer Wilds and a bunch of other Critical Darlings and stuff like that. Well, they started their own studio. I imagine that we're probably going to see these people again. Especially if they were willing to walk out. I imagine there's some contingency here. There's some money somewhere else that they're gonna that they're gonna go get. At least I kind of hope so. So that's kind of
well, I
my theory
mean,
right now.
you think the current, or the former president of Annapurna Interactive, Nathan Gary, he's the one who he obviously, like in order to do a walkout, you have to have some sort of set plan. I mean, there's never a case where it's just like, well, I'm just gonna bail, and everyone's like, oh, dude, he bailed, unless if he's such a um, golden figure, like that. Everyone's like, oh, dude, he left. I can't work for anyone other but him. I mean, obviously they would have talked about it beforehand, and hopefully, he would have connections or something like that to be like, hey, I know some other people who would be angel investors or who are willing to back us, or someone who else wants to start a new company. Um, but
Uh,
loyalty first. Give this one a shot.
and I'm
But also, I'm really just curious what pushed them to this point. And that's the big thing. Like,
well,
why even need to spin off? Why even feel the need to do this? How bad were the conditions currently or going to be in the near future for them to be like, we need to make this change and we need to make it now?
my guess is that they were making all these good games in spite of her. They were like, we're gonna do. I imagine there was a lot of hey, you should do this and you should do that, and they were like, no, we're gonna do it this way, and it ends up working out. Either that, or it's always possible that the managers there, not the owner, but the managers there got greedy, and started to figure out, hey, we can do this. We're doing so great. We can do this on our own. We should try to do a hostile takeover. You know, that's certainly possible. It's not always evil ownership or whatever. I kind of doubt it. Based on what other stuff I've heard, I kind of doubt it. I kind of think that they were probably sick of what she was doing or whatever. But I do have to give some credence to the possibility that they're not in the right here or whatever. But I don't know. It remains to be seen.
Yeah. So yeah, good luck to all them. It's a bold choice,
Good
and
luck
maybe it
to
wasn't you
everyone.
know, yeah. I mean, like obviously the studio has a history of good games. Annapurna Pictures has some good movies behind their backing. So like they have, when it comes to artistic choices, like they've always kind of been a kind of neat beacon. Like okay, their name slapped onto something. At least it's going to be interesting. It may not be for you, but it'd be interesting. So to see
I hated 12
what that
minutes,
step,
but yeah. Straight
it
like
was still it was still interesting.
yeah, it definitely was
I
interesting.
mean, the ending fell a little hard, but anyway, it's despite
Yeah.
hey, uh,
Probably shouldn't
it's like
relitigate 12 minutes right now.
dude, you're from the South, you probably related it too much, so I understand. But no, it's
Well,
you they got they got William Defoe to voice it. It's super weird. The fact that they were able to pull something like that. Um,
yeah, that was pretty wild.
but yeah, we'll
Incest,
see we'll
really?
see what happens,
Wow.
and I'm pretty sure we'll hear sooner than later, because it'd be more interesting to see what happens to the current studio and how they restaff. And then also it's going to just be interesting to see what new company comes out or like who takes them in. So, all
Yeah.
right. And you got looks like one more news bulletin, right?
Yeah, last little bit. You told me about this earlier. Microsoft Gaming lays off 650 people. So yeah, I feel like we called this whenever they had all their acquisitions. I feel like we were like, yeah, they're gonna start laying people off, and gutting these studios. Um, I I know that I was not as confident about it back then, but it seems like it's happening a lot now, and yeah, there's not really much more to say about it other than it's been happening a lot. You found something online where they were tracking all the layoffs in the industry, and that there's been a lot. What last year they laid off like 1,900. Um,
Well,
the
yeah, it was January.
Yeah,
It was the Blizzard acquisition. We talked about
yeah,
it back then too, but it was just like, of course, when they're gonna get Blizzard, they're gonna get rid of all the redundant jobs, the people that the fluff that they don't feel like they need.
yeah.
They got the IP. They don't need to have another backup studio making like maybe they don't need so many people for Call of Duty, and that's why like no matter who they when they got rid of Tango GameWorks and stuff, they're like if they don't know what they're doing. I honestly believe I'm like they're just gonna cut people here and there, and they got the titles, they got the IP, they are pretty much just gonna kind of rebuild from the ground up, or pull a Konami and kind of just forget about the IP
Mm.
that they have, and they're like, yeah, we'll
Well,
bring it back later in a remake or a
well, if
sequel.
if Microsoft starts buying pachinko machines, we'll know that the video game part of them is done for. And before the
They'll
cast,
buy Konami to get back into Japan again. They're like, we screwed up with Tango, we're gonna buy Konami.
you know what? That would actually be pretty interesting if Microsoft managed to somehow buy Konami. Um, I They would definitely make more games off of that, but I was telling you before the cast, and um, I I think that um, the best days of Blizzard. This is kind of a gamble, more than anything. But I think the best days of Blizzard and Activision and everybody that Microsoft has bought, the best days for those studios are in the past. Now, I think that it might be good for a while. I think it might be fine for a while, but I think that slowly but surely, because it seems to happen famously with EA running these studios into the ground. BioWare is a hollow shell of what it was. Has made a ton of mistakes, and basically isn't anything like. And we don't expect them to be anything like what they were, even close. And I think that slowly but surely Blizzard is that's definitely going to happen to Blizzard. I think Blizzard is almost certainly going to get worse and worse. I'm pretty sure Activision will not really get much better. And yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and say that right now. And I will eat crow if I'm wrong. I will be happy to eat plenty of crow if I'm wrong. But I think
I
that's going
feel
to
like
happen.
you're stating what's already happened. Like you're like, this is my prediction. I'm like, dude, it's been that way. I feel that I've
I
already felt
mean,
that way with Blizzard.
I mean,
Blizzard has been a shell of the company it's been since like Diablo 3. I mean,
but that
it's
would be
not there's
before. I mean, that'd be before they got bought out. So, like, I don't know.
yeah, they've already gone down. There's nothing. I mean, there
I think they're going to get worse though. I think that they were at a point where they might come back up. They might have a little bit of whatever. I don't think that they're going to even really. I think that they could have maintained what they were, but now I think that it will slowly
they
get
got
worse and
bought out
worse.
having released Overwatch 2. So
Yep.
yeah, I think they were bought at the lowest point. I mean, there's not much other than shuttering the doors. There's not much else they can really do on that front.
They made
Activision,
they made a lot of money on
Activision's
Diablo
been
4
close.
though. So that's pretty
I
pretty
mean,
popular game.
Diablo,
You
it's
didn't like
Diablo
it, but
3.
I
I think
mean, like
well,
critically, it did
like
well and it sold really well too, as far as I know.
I mean, Diablo will always sell well. The Diablo 3 came out on multiple consoles. The PC or when it went from PC, but then when it to console, it kind of changed the game. And yes, it sells well, but it doesn't last well. And it's just like it's I don't actually think it did critically like great. I mean, it didn't do bad, but it wasn't
It wasn't
like
like
it
a
didn't
10 or
set the
anything like
world on
that. No.
fire.
I
Long term,
I
this
played 30 hours of it. I thought it was. I don't remember what I said on this podcast, but I was probably a lot higher on it when I actually talked about it on this podcast. But I was bored for a lot of that game. Really, I'm not a loot grinder, dude. So you know, but and that game is a lot of loot grinding. But I didn't think the story was very good. I didn't think it was.
which one you cut out there for a sec when you said
Sorry,
uh, Diablo 4?
Diablo 4. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it's I was, kind of thinking back on it now, I was pretty bored for a lot of that game. So,
Well, that's I
yeah.
mean, that's the thing. So Diablo 4 is like, that's the best of what they got. And that's unfortunately that was before they were bought out. And
Yeah.
there's not I haven't had hope for them for a very long time. Activision, I still have hope that they make Call of Duties, and they still do. So I mean,
With
the fun thing
campaigns,
is
yeah.
topical they just recently Tony Hawk just recently did a message, kind of hinting at the possible talks of a new Tony Hawk game coming out, being in talks with Activision. They updated the logo for Pro Skater, so there's
Wow.
hopes that the Activision might do something with Tony Hawk still. I mean, when they did that, pretty solid remake of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. So there's still some life left in Activision, hopefully, if they don't fire them first. And yeah,
Yeah. I I'm thinking it's going to go down. Um if you could buy stock in those companies, I would say sell it. But Microsoft stock is going to continue to go up because that's what it does. Yeah, so that's the news.
all right, cool. Due to pretty much being sick this last week, I have not really had much chance to play anything, so I will let you do the heavy lifting on this one.
Yeah, so how much gaming news we had. I think I'd like to save what I have to say about the game I played for next time because we have some shows and stuff that I actually like to talk about a little bit more. And the game I played, I like to think about like what I want to say about it a little bit more. And I know it's going to be a little bit longer, so I don't want this podcast to get too long in the tooth. So I think I'd rather just skip on to shows if that's okay with you.
Yeah, it's fine. All right. So, what have you been watching then?
So I watched a movie on Netflix called Rebel Ridge. Um, and so it was pretty good. This movie is it is about a guy who is wronged by police in a small town, and he has to set them right. So it's a little bit. I've never seen Walking Tall, but from what I understand, it's kind of like Walking Tall. If I remember, if I know
That's
what
what it sounded like to me.
yeah,
Um,
it's pretty much that, but the conceit behind it maybe is a little bit different. So I don't know all of the details about Walking Tall, but basically, um, yeah, this guy's wronged in a small town and has to take on the cops of the small town, and um, it was pretty good. This is a Netflix movie. It's made by Netflix and all that stuff. Um, and it had a lot of it was pretty smart. It had a lot of good scenes. It had a lot of good ideas in it. The dialogue in it was mostly good. There there is one part that I thought the dialogue was really stupid where one person says, "I think tonight's going to get really dark." And then there's a really long pause and then the main character goes, "I think that's what knights do." And I was just like, that's bad. That's just really bad, dumb, trying to be badass dialogue. That's probably the lowest point though. Everything else was
I wish it then it cut to the night, but it showed a full moon.
I mean, yeah. So I don't know why that a line like that makes it in because it really wasn't necessary. Anyway, that aside, the rest of it was pretty good, um, and, uh, and pretty well put together. Probably there's some more things I could nitpick. There was definitely some stuff where I was like, well, why did they do that? And that's kind of silly, but it's a little bit go along to get along on some of those points. I did think that the main guy, who is British, um, was really good. He was really fantastic, and I'd really like to see more of him. This was I don't know his name, but he's uh, he's a black British actor, and I heard on a podcast, which actually is sort of what spurred me to watch this movie. I heard on a podcast that this role was initially supposed to be given to John Boyega, um, uh, from Star Wars. What, Finn, is that his name from Star Wars? Um, and he turned it down or moved away from it. And I think he probably would have done okay in this role, but I think that this guy that they got was really good. I think that I can't really.
Aaron Pierre.
That's it. Yeah. So basically, after watching it, I'm thinking about what John Boyega would have been like in this movie, and I just don't see him being as good as this guy, as Aaron Pierre. So so I was kind of a pleasant surprise, and it was really good. Overall, it was a good popcorn movie. Good, just kind of chill on a Friday night or whatever movie. It got my attention. Um,
I
it
don't think I would have been able to watch it because Don Johnson was the bad guy, and I'm like, I can't take that seriously. The dude from Miami Vice, I'm like, really? Um, so I
uh,
was just like, that's
he's good. He's in it enough. And he's in it enough, and he is. I mean, I guess you didn't grow up with Nash Bridges, did you?
I did, but at the same time,
You're older,
it was
so
one of those
yeah.
it was one of those great like TNT like just kind of
Yeah,
it's a Wednesday, who cares?
yeah, it's a
But
Wednesday
I'm
and
like,
I'm
it
not
had
drunk
change
yet, so I
trauma.
guess so. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Nash Bridges. So I remember my first exposure to Don Johnson was Nash Bridges, and I liked him in that, and he's good in this. He doesn't have to do a lot of heavy lifting, but he definitely holds his own, and I liked him in this as well. Um,
I can't see him as a bad guy though. If he's supposed to be the bad guy, then I just can't see it, man. He's a good cheesy, like, you know, uh, you know, protagonist, but that's the whole point. That's I don't know. I really have a hard time just wrapping my
well,
head around
well,
that.
he's a likable bad guy in this. He is very much.
Okay.
He's very much where you're like, yeah, I get why this guy is the leader, and I do kind of like him, even though he's a bad dude. He is likable in that way. He's a likable villain, I guess. And I think like there's like one main scene with Don Johnson and Aaron Pierre where they are face to face before some stuff pops off, and it is good. It is a very good chemistry between those two. Um, the only thing that I will say, just like been said a bunch, um, is that I feel like if this movie had come out in the '90s, it would have in a theater, um, it would have been better. It would have probably a little bit more cleaned up dialogue. It would feel less episodic because this movie felt very episodic. It felt like the first half hour was an episode, second half hour on and on. It just felt like four episodes kind of jammed together. So I think that if it had come out in the '90s and been like a real theater movie, it would feel less episodic. It would have had more set pieces. Like it would have had probably a bigger final set piece where like the final showdown would have been like had a couple more explosions and stuff like that and been cooler in that way. And probably would have had a little bit more finality at the end. I felt like they ended it was, yeah, you don't really need to say any more than that, but also a little bit like of a 5 minutes of a denouement, 3 minutes of a denouement sort of type scene would have been good.
So
So
you're just saying I should just watch Rambo. Um,
it is Rambo. It is definitely Rambo in a lot of ways. And so you're not wrong in saying you should just watch Rambo, but so it's just the same
no,
old.
from what I saw, it got a lot of sevens across the board, for like, likings. So it's like it seems like it's well liked. So yeah, uh, that's cool. I
It,
mean, I don't have Netflix anymore, so I'm not gonna watch it. But yeah,
yeah, but I mean, like
uh,
even if you just want to like rip it or whatever, it's worth. Um, it's worth like I don't have anything better to do, and it'll the action in it will because the action in it, I mean, is very down to earth, which I appreciated in some ways, um, and was cool for that part. So
less over the top, like MMA, CQC, that type of stuff. Just more like realistic fighting or shooting,
there is some
like
MMA
all
stuff in
special
it,
forces type stuff.
but it
Okay.
is it is like okay, and I could probably pick pick the things apart and go, yeah, you wouldn't really do that, or they would actually do this in that situation. But it's kind of hard, like the things that the hero does and the situations that he puts the villains in. I was like, yeah, if I was the villain, I probably would make the same decision that they are making in that amount of time with given that like what they have and so for that part I thought it was pretty cool. I think it's all right. And then so initially I wasn't going to watch it, but I listened to a podcast which I wasn't intending to, where they started to talk about it, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll give it a try. And I kind of got sucked into it, and I was like, all right, this is not bad. So that's kind of my thing. I think seven, maybe seven is probably fair. I might give it a little less, like a 6.8 or something like that. after time. But the only other thing I was going to say about shows is that Uzumaki starts in 2 weeks, and I'm pretty excited about that. So I will probably I'll probably watch that. And if you're listening to this and you don't know what I'm talking about, then you should Google it because I think it's going to be um, pretty interesting to say the least. I read the comic for that a couple years ago, and what the animation that they're doing for it looks pretty all right. So I'm excited for
Oh,
that.
how are they showing that? Because, the Cartoon Network shut down, right? Is it
I
just
don't
only streaming or
I don't know. I haven't looked it up again. I just saw on this app that it's supposed to come out in 2 weeks. It's only going to be 4 episodes. I don't know who has it now, but I will look that up and I mean I'll figure it out for myself. I hope I remember to talk about it on this podcast. But I will definitely it'll air somewhere. So if you have to, just rip it, I guess. Um, but I encourage you to watch it where somebody makes some money off of it because um, it's only 4 episodes. It's not a particularly long story. The manga is several hundred pages, but that's not very long in manga terms. So, and it looks like the animation they've really given it a lot of love. It was a long time ago where they came out with an apology video basically saying, sorry, but this is going to take a lot longer than we thought. But here is the first 2 minutes or whatever. And they showed it, and it is the first 2 minutes of the manga and the anime. And I was like, okay, yeah, they are. Um, it's in black and white, um, which serves it pretty well, I think. Keeps it creepy. Um, it's yeah, so it's gonna be right at I guess as October starts, so spooky season, and yeah, man, I'm excited for it.
All right. Yeah. And for those who don't know, and who, when you look it up, it is on the horror spectrum of entertainment. So just yeah, if you're squeamish, then you might want to avoid it. But it's very unique, and it's like I think most me and my friends all discovered it around high school. It's like Junji Ito, his is the mangaka or the author,
Yeah,
and makes really unique, semi grotesque, but like just disturbing, I guess, is like, but not, I don't know, not Hellraiser, but like Hellraiser adjacent.
no,
Like
it's way
not
more
not as gory, but like just really twisted,
it's
you
way
know.
more
So
approachable. His stuff is way more approachable, and I do encourage you, either before or
yep.
after you watch it, to go and get the manga. I would say in paperback form, if you or in physical form if you can. Um, it wouldn't kill you to read it online, but I think it's worth having in physical form. It's in some way, shape. If
Yeah.
you're into manga, it's definitely a classic,
Oh
an
yeah,
all
for sure. It's
timer.
totally classic. If you are squeamish about body horror, then once again, be warned beforehand.
It's horror,
Because
yeah, it's horror.
yeah.
So watch out. But yeah, it's good.
Most specifically, yeah, like I said, specifically body horror. And this one in Uzumaki. But yeah, that's cool. Like I thought I saw a trail, like YouTube just flashed like the trailer for a bit, and I'm like, yep, not watching that with my kids here, so I didn't get to actually watch it. And I was like, okay, cool, that's still going on because with the whole Cartoon Network thing, I wasn't sure what we were speculating last time that we weren't sure what was going on with it. So I'm glad it's coming out. And for me, I mentioned this long time ago, twice actually. Once when it came out in Japanese, and once in started coming out in English. But Helck, uh, Helck is the fantasy anime where the main character is just this macho burly dude. It finally finished in English, 24 episodes, and I originally watched it a little bit in Japanese. Then I just didn't have the time for it, and knowing that how long it was, I just couldn't really commit to it. And then I started watching it when it came out in English, and it's a wild trip. Uh, it's like it kind of goes a little bit everywhere, and it's just like it starts out with a just being like this kind of slapstick comedy almost, just a spoof, and then somewhere along the lines, it's kind of a slow burn, but it's interesting. So just a real quick summary is the beginning is just like the demon, like this. There's a fantasy world. You have magic and heroes and demons. Um, so the demon kingdom is trying to make a new. They're literally holding a contest to see who's going to be the new demon lord, and uh, with all the demon candidates in like a coliseum, and then there's just one random human, like super beefy, like Arnold Schwarzenegger esque, Conan the Barbarian looking dude, and it's just it's kind of ridiculous to know like oh a human's trying to go out to be the demon lord, and it's funny enough. The dubbing, I watched this all dubbed, and the dubbing's pretty decent, I think actually. Uh, it's really weird because about maybe, I don't know, dozen episodes, not even a dozen episodes, but maybe like 6 episodes in, I realized the main female voice is a classic voice from the old Azumanga, um, anime. And of all things, of all people, it's like Osaka, which is the dumb one, I guess, like the super airhead character. And so to have them be this like angry, crass like voice, occasionally cursing, which for anime it's always kind of weird when they curse, but they do it in a kind of interesting way, and it's a little shocking, but it's also funny. I think it's appropriate. I guess is the best way. Uh, yeah, it's like this is it's a really weird, lighthearted thing in the beginning, and then there's also like this second act twist where uh, it's like some of the characters are separated from the rest of the group, and then it's like, all right, now it's backstory time, and it's just like it fills in with this little backstory, you know, kind of like the one season of Naruto Shippuden, which for those of you who know, but granted, it doesn't drag on that long, and I feel it's more entertaining. But also, it's like it's a weird like lull, still entertaining, but just like it's a slow burn, and then it kind of kicks up towards the end, where it was like, okay, great. You're not gonna finish in time, are you? And it's just like, nope. Apparently, it only like goes like half. So these 24 episodes goes through about maybe half of the manga. Apparently, uh, I unfortunately am not holding my breath for a second season, because usually it's based on sales, and it's been a hot minute since the anime ended in Japan, and there's been no murmur of a sequel.
Hmm.
So it is unfortunate. It's kind of but it kinda reminds me of, like, anime of old, essentially, where, I got more out of this than I did most of the other stuff that was 12 episodes or less, where it was just like, yeah, 6-episode OVA and a flash in the pan, you have no idea what's gonna happen to the rest of it. This at least felt like it came to an okay stopping point, but obviously the journey's still not finished. But it was a fun ride all in all. I mean, um like, it's a kind of a hard recommendation. It's one of those, like, I enjoyed my time with it, but at the same time, it did like, having I feel like if you watch them back to back, like you can now, it would be more enjoyable because, like, for me, I had to wait, these last 24 weeks, and it was like, "Alright, that I want it to move forward, and I'm getting more backstory or more filler," like, not filler, like, it's important filler to a certain extent, but I was just like, "Alright, um" it feels like you could have picked up the pace, knowing that, but I think it's kind of almost intentional that, like, yeah, we want to this is meant to be like a 2-season, 48 episode saga. Uh,
Hmm.
so it moves at the right pace for this if you think about it that way. Um, and yeah, it was just like I said, it was different enough. It was just it kept me. I don't know. It wasn't your typical thing. Overall, it had a lot of funny moments, and the action, like you like the characters all in all. There was no one like crazy annoying. There's maybe you might dislike certain things, but it was like yeah, it was without spoiling a lot. I mean, but I just like one of those weird episodes is like they were trying to make a way to like earn money to get travel, and then they decide to throw in a food battle of all things, which
Like a
seemed
Food
random.
Wars type food battle.
It was exactly like a food wars battle, to the
Hmm.
point where I'm pretty sure. All right, so it was like an Iron Chef kind of deal where like these people are in the middle of it, and then there's these outsiders, which everyone ignored the outsiders, which are the main characters, and you had the one young kid who's like super ganky, gun ho, energetic, like doing all the cliches of any like shonen manga. With my passion, I'm gonna try the hardest and this and that, and it was just spoofing on all the like, especially like food genres in general, to the point where they actually hit a couple key trade lines from Food Wars. Like the orders up and thank you, like in the same manner as Soma does from Food Wars. So I'm like, I understood the reference and I found it quite funny in that respect. But at the same time, I'm like, was it needed? No. Was it random? Yes, and I kind of like it for this weird randomness. So yeah, I guess uh, critically, I'd have to probably give it like a 6.
Hmm.
It's like it's good. It's like I liked it. It was
That's weird
okay. I
because you seem
enjoyed
to
my
like
time
it a
with
lot
it.
more than that. I mean, you're talking about like for
Like
your
critically, like if I'm gonna
if
have
you're
to
gonna
recommend it to
recommend
some
it,
like
okay,
yeah. See, personally, I enjoyed like it's one of those things that I know I liked it more than that, but I would say to
okay.
the average person, unless if you're looking for something like different, weird, if you want something that's more of an arc, like, and in this case, it's most definitely like manga bait, where it's like
Oh,
now I'm like, dang, I
if
kind of think I need to read the manga to finish this one.
if
I'm not going to read the
you
first half. I'm just
okay,
going to go like some certain ones I'll go ahead and read from the beginning.
but
In fact, I'm kind
okay,
of doing that now with a different one.
but
But
like if you Joe now had to convince Joe before he saw Helk, what rating would you give it? Like, so you're talking to yourself, knowing that you're gonna like it. Like, would you give it a 6 then, or would you give it something else?
well, so once again, for me, I'd rate it about 7.5 for
Okay,
myself.
okay,
And the thing
but
is,
okay,
I didn't have to sell it on myself. It's just that reading like I said in the beginning, you're thinking it's complete gag, like kind of spoof comic. The first like 3 or 4 episodes are nothing but silliness. I mean, entertaining and it's funny,
mhm.
but then it does a tonal shift, and then you have an invading army, some villains that you have no clue about. Then you spend a handful of episodes getting backstory on like the build up to where things and kind of how things are. Um, and you start to get more invested into a serious tone, but like in between the serious tones are still pretty good sparses of comedy. So once again, it's if you want something different, if you want something that's a fantasy genre but also kind of pokes fun at itself, yeah, I would totally recommend this to somebody. But if you're like 24 episodes is a long thing, I'm like, dude, I completely hear you, and you're not missing anything by not watching it. Like
Mm,
you're free to, it's not a must watch. It's one of those, in the words of Nick, it's like a popcorn movie.
mhm.
Um, it's like most definitely like if we come up with shirts, that's going to be your face and your slogan, right? Uh,
My head and
so
like a bowl of
that's your
popcorn.
catchphrase, yeah. Or your head's on the bucket like Colonel Sanders KFC.
Mm,
It's just,
just my head.
but yeah. Uh, I like I said, I enjoyed my time with it. I won't tell someone, "Oh, yeah, you shouldn't watch it," but I'm not gonna go out of my way to be like, "Dude, you really should watch this," because in the end, in the grand scheme of things, your anime knowledge, your entertainment knowledge, you're not better off having watched it.
Yeah,
So
there's just
that's
things
why I
about
have to
it
give it a
that
6.
you like. There's things about it that
Yeah.
it gets to you. Yeah, okay, I get that. That makes sense. So if you have Joe's sensibilities, then you can enjoy it.
Yeah, and this, once again, it's just like if you're just gonna go on a random whim, I mean, like I said, that's the thing is this one throws you for a loop because the first 3 episodes do not is not a good representation of how the story goes, just because it becomes like more of an epic, like a sprawling story, a journey, a thing. There's more to it. There's multiple sides and stuff like that. But once again, it's not like super high, n- you know, uh, class. It's not like a Record of Lotus Wars where it's trying to be more of something. No, it's still it's still kind of there. But like I said, I found it entertaining, and I kind of do want to know how it ends. So all right, there's that. And then another weird one. So this one is, I hate light novel titles.
Hmm.
uh My instant death ability is so overpowered. No one in this world stands a chance.
No one in this other
So yeah,
world. You missed a word.
oh, other world stands a chance. Yeah, my bad. Um, so, anyways, uh, I happened to like years ago.
What's
I
what's
had read
what's good about this one?
this is a school bus of kids gets isekai, and so you know, kind of kind of remember the beginning of Battle Royale, that Japanese movie? Yeah, so it's like that. They
Okay.
wind up in a new land, and, their teachers just get executed just to prove a point, and then they're like, this figure, Sage it's like, snaps their fingers and like, "Boom, you've all been installed with, your isekai cheat abilities. Um, the few of you that weren't selected, well, tough luck." And so the like you guys have a quest, you got to make it to the city, and there's a dragon coming. So good luck. And that sage bounces. So all the people who have abilities are like, all right, let's get together. We're just gonna leave the people on the bus who don't have abilities to be like dragon bait, while buys us enough time to just bolt. And turns out one of the people on the bus has the ability to insta murder people, just pure thought, and it's comical to the point where because he just like out of nowhere just like die, and then like that person just dies, which is also doubly funny because an insult in Japan for like the kids is shine, which is die, and it's
It's
just
like the
like
worst thing
as
you can
a
say to a person, but yeah.
yeah, but like in the US, you're like, that's not real. If I just went, just if I got angry at Nick and anyone die, like
He would be
that.
like,
Or,
okay, that's kind of weird, but
yeah, I know, but it's
it's
so
kind of
much
weak.
more
Yeah.
impactful there.
Yeah. Other languages
So
have
just
different, rules for curse
yeah,
words and insults.
yeah. So it's but it is like it's what kids in elementary school say to each other when they're angry at each other. They just like die. Um, so yeah, that's his shtick. He just insta murders things, and it goes all over the place because I forgot. Like I think I had read a handful of chapters forever ago, and I remember when this first came out, I'm like, I'm kind of interested because I never did finish or continue with the manga, and I remember it got weird, and so I'm like, and I tried watching it in Japanese. I'm like, there's better stuff out here, and I just don't have the time. And now that it's been dubbed, and I got sick, I'm like, you know what, um, this is a good time to catch up on it. So I caught up to like currently like episode 9. And it's kind of batshit crazy in a lot of ways. It's just like random stuff. It's like out of nowhere, they're like, you got these sages, which are like these like powerful beings, like like superheroes, in this fantasy isekai. But then they're like, and there's like these quote unquote like enemy types called aggressors who are like invading isekai monsters of all types. Like out of nowhere, there's a mech, and this mech and the sage are battling it out, and the main hero is kind of getting involved by accident, and he's just like, the hero, the hero sage is like, you guys are in my way. You should like grovel to me, and starts acting like a prick. So he's just like die. And so
Hmm.
this superpower sage is just dead. And of course, with the main character is his female companion, who has a weird spirit guardian from our world. And so yeah, it's just like it's just so off the walls, just rando. And I'm kind of enjoying it just because of that. It's like, I don't know, it seems like it's a fever dream. It kind of is what it is. It's like, and I'm just gonna throw this in, and I'm gonna throw this in. It's like Sasaki and Peeps, but Sasaki and Peeps was pretty solid as a
Hmm.
whole. But like I said, it's just like how many things can I mash up, smush together, and just throw at the wall? Um, and I'm okay with that. Once again, I watched it when I was not feeling well, so I found it to be entertaining that way too. But it's just like, it's rare that you just see something so random. Uh,
Yeah, that can be kind of
that,
fun.
that-
It can be kind of fun if
yeah,
if you're just like, oh, I guess
once
I'm
again,
just gonna watch this.
I considered a 6 just from me myself. It's
If
just a 6. I'm just watching it out
if
of pure
it's,
curiosity. I'm laughing. I'm like, but I'm like, this is stupid.
I
This
mean,
is
like if you think you're gonna watch like some fantasy anime, and like you're like, okay, here's the hero, here's the dragon, here's the wizard, and then like the wizard does like just gets like his head exploded or something weird or funny, and there's like a wrestling match or step into into the octagon or some sumo thing or something, then it's like, okay, that like woke me up. And it's like, what is going on? And you're like really paying attention finally, and then it's like, oh, okay, this show is at least trying some weird stuff. It makes you invested for a minute, if even if it doesn't last. It's like, all right, they swung for the
Yep.
fences.
Like I said, it was just, like one of the three of the classmates in the beginning were like, yeah, we've actually been to this world before, so we actually have our old stuff from the first time we were here. So they have like all these extra abilities and equipment, and then they start to try to pick a fight with the main two characters, the hero and the heroine, and they're like, they're like, yeah, we want to. One of the guys is all pervy for the girl, and starts to pick a fight with the guy, and so the guy's like, die, and so he just drops dead, and then the other two friends are like, wait a minute, what just happened? He goes, don't move or else I want to kill you. That's my ability. And one of the guys goes to check on his buddy who was on the ground, and he's just like, die. And so it's like guy number two collapses on guy number one, and they're just dead. Like, that's it. It's just I mean,
Told you.
it's yeah, like I said, it's, that's exactly what he did. Is like, it's silly, stupid, and even the spirit, who's like accompanying the girl, she's just like, our family has a lineage of martial arts, so I'm gonna pass that down to you. For it's essentially just weak plot armor. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna give you this, which she never really uses. But then anytime something comes up where they need something, she does the thing where like, hey, there's a vehicle. I don't know how to drive it. Don't worry, you can do it with our family lineage of of driving vehicles. And she's like, what? How is our family this capable? And then the spirit comes up with some light novel title for every new ability they have, like some family secret, and it's just this long thing of text, and they make fun of it. I mean, it's one of those
Mm,
things that, yeah, it's almost when you try to be meta and you're not funny, but because you're not funny, that like it almost
also
comes
makes it
around on
fun.
itself twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not just once, but like it misses,
Well,
it whiffs,
well, it's
but
like
it comes back
Peter
again.
fighting the chicken in Family Guy, where it's not it's funny, and then it goes on too long, and then it's not funny, and then comes it keeps going, and then it becomes funny again. And I think they go through about two more cycles of that. It is really weird how if you just stick with it, it will become funny at some point.
Yeah, and to this point, they don't do the Family Guy thing of where they beat that to death to the point where it's just a, okay, oh god, it's another one of these things.
Mm,
It's currently still in that early phase where it's like, okay, this is still entertaining. Now, if they continue to do that every single time, every single episode, then
yeah,
it'd be done with.
it'll wear
Once
itself
again,
out.
like I said, I think it's just a six, like in general,
Mm,
but at the same time, it was the right like it was the right kind of dumb entertainment I needed for just being like I'm
fever
bedridden
dream.
and I feel terrible. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, it's one of those, it's not an isekai anyone really should go seeking out, but if you
Mm,
want something stupid, then there you go.
then there you have
Honestly,
it.
much better stuff out there to watch though. Unfortunately, I've already seen most of the current stuff this season.
Well,
So that was why it's like, you know what, I'm gonna catch up on this. So,
yeah, that is what
uh
it is.
yeah, so weird stuff. That's what I've been watching. And until yeah, like I said, if you want a recommendation of good weird stuff, in 2 weeks you got Uzumaki. So
Let's hope so. I'm gonna try to jump in on that as soon as it comes out. But yeah,
sweet. All right, guys. Yeah, this has been another Dead Pixel, episode 92. If you made it this far, we really appreciate it. And Nick, what are the words of wisdom you got for the people out there?
um, save your money and use it to buy a PS5 Pro after you have a small fortune.
Uh, save that. My advice is save that money for the PS6, or
Yeah,
waste that money on a PS5 and the VR2.
yeah,
All
we didn't
right,
talk about that, but yeah, that'd be another thing you could do too.
all right, guys. Until next time, you all just take it easy.
Bye.